Well, good morning, everybody. We're in Washington, D.C. this morning, and we've come to the point where we have 400 chapters on this documentary. And of course, my name is Big House, Guanalacqua, and I had promised friends and relatives on every mile marker I would tell a little bit more about myself. So brace yourself. This is my attempt at telling a little bit more about myself, because I'm not real big on sharing myself with the rest of the world all the time. Although I've been an entertainer for a while, it's still you put up this front. And one of the things that puzzles everyone is I don't know how to read. I have never read anything, especially a book, in all my life. The only one I ever read was in high school, and I read a little tiny paperback book called Hot Rod about a bunch of teenage kids who got in all kinds of trouble racing cars and getting in trouble with the cops. And I was on a mission. I said, I'm going to read a book, a whole book, which actually was cheating because it was just a little tiny paperback book. So that's the book I read, Hot Rod. And the rest of the time, I never got any reading skills. I never developed any. Here's the reason why. I see at a young age, at an infant age, I caught polio. And then at about 6.5 years old, I caught a bone marrow disease called Legg-Perthes. Now, up till the age of about 11, I was pretty much in and out of hospitals all the time, and spent most of my time in children's hospitals, where they sort of gave you an education, I guess, but it was sort of just a silly one-room school thing with some assignments and whatnot, and you're left basically on your own with the assignments to finish them and then try to take the test. So in that period up till I was about 11, I never ever developed any reading skills. Came out of the hospitals with a very bad limp, and I ended up being bullied immensely. The kids in school can be very cruel, and I limped like crazy. They called me Chester, which was an old cowboy movie where the deputy sheriff had this horrible limp. Anyway, so they called me Chester, and they used to run in front of me backwards. I was so slow at running. Anyway, I suddenly, in mid-teens, gained a lot of weight. And I figured out if I could get a hold of them by surprise and drag them to the ground, I could pound the snot out of them, which I did. And I did it enough times I got a reputation for being a fighter and a troublemaker, which kind of put me in the back of the classroom. So in the back of the classroom, for you people who have never been there, it's the most wonderful place. You see, when you're in the back of the classroom, as long as you don't set the school on fire or get the teacher pregnant, it doesn't matter what you do back there, because you knew that they were going to pass you to get rid of you to the next grade, so they didn't have to see you again. So it really didn't matter what you did. But in that time, I never learned how to read anything. I really can't read much more than the ingredients on a product, or after a couple of paragraphs, I just either drift off mentally or fall asleep. I'm not sure if that's some sort of social or physical problem, but that's just the way it is. So everything that I've done in my life has been with stolen information, just listening, talking to people, figuring out, watching short little videos, especially like on YouTube now. But anything I get my hands on to get the information into my head, but it did not come from any books. And a short story that always tore me to pieces is I'm walking by my daughter Crystal's room, and she was in her early teens. I'm walking by her bedroom, and quite by mistake, she's making enough noise inside, squealing and squirming and screaming, that I broke the door down, jumped in, and there she sits on her bed reading a book. And I went, it sounded like you were dying in here. What is going on? She says, oh, Dad, I'm reading this Stephen King novel, and I know that the girl's about ready to open the door, and behind the door is an awful man that's going to kill her, and it's on the next page. So I know what's going to happen, and I'm going to be terrified, but I don't have the nerve to turn the page. It blew me away because I never have experienced this to this day, that anything written would ever grab me like that. And she could describe this man behind the door to a T. I mean, right down to the detail. And the girl that was going to open the door by mistake. I never acquired that thrill of comprehending anything that was written. And to this day, I always wonder what it would feel like to have such a thrill. I may never know because I never developed the reading skills, but I could steal enough information. Now, I'll tell you a little story about the classroom. The teacher goes, I was in the back of the room sleeping at the time, and I had a mind at the time which I could set in about maybe 4 or 5 different levels of thinking of things. So I would set the teacher, whatever she was boring things she was talking about, on record and then take a nap. She comes back and bangs on the desk, scares the heck out of me. I wake up, she says, "Mr. Hooper, you have been sleeping my whole class and you haven't heard a word I said." And I said, "Mrs. Willis, you were talking about Napoleon, and in 1649 he crossed the English Channel with 1,200 troops and armaments to attack the British." She said, "I don't know how the heck you do that, but that's aggravating." She says, "Friday is going to be a quiz, and I'm going to sit you in the front of the room where you can't cheat, and you better pass the quiz." So I said, "All right, what do you want me to get on the test?" And she said, "I want you to get a 90 score on that test, no lower, or I know you haven't been paying attention, and no cheating." Okay, fine. So Friday came, she sat me right in the front of the front row, right in front of her. Took the test, and I got done, handed it in, and says, "Miss Willis, I think I've made a terrible mistake." She laughed and says, "I thought so." And I says, "Yeah, I got 2 of the questions I think I got right. I should have gotten wrong. I think I got about a 95, so I missed that 90 score." And she laughed, grabbed the paper, scored it, and she goes, "I just don't believe it. Where did you get all this information? How did you cheat?" So at that point I figured out, okay, there isn't anything I can do to win this woman over. As fair as I can play, it doesn't matter. I'm a cheater in her eyes and a troublemaker. So I had a great time being a troublemaker. I mean, I came into my brother came home from New York City with a pair of purple hip hugger bell-bottom elephant bell jeans. If you're not familiar with these, the bell on the bottom is so big your foot doesn't even show. It just looks like an elephant's leg. The hip hugger meant that the back of the jeans, you couldn't pull them up because there was no crotch in them, and you sort of looked like a plumber bending over the whole time. And they were purple. At the time, blue jeans, peg legs, stuck right tight to your ankles was the style. So I got into physics class, and the teacher said, "Mr. Hooper, what the heck have you got on?" He made me stand up. The class completely broke out roaring. And I said, "These are the next big style. Hip hugger, elephant bell jeans." The class wouldn't stop laughing. He says, "I can't teach this class with you wearing those stupid pants. Go down to the principal's office." Now, I went down, and Bill and I were on a first name basis, as I was probably on his dean's list, but not the one you're thinking of. And he says, "Hey, Hoop, what's going on today?" And I says, "Well, Mr. Phelps said my bell-bottom jeans were distractive and he couldn't teach class. He sent me down to you." And he says, "Oh man, what are we going to do? Do you want detention?" And I says, "No, I'm pretty booked up till I'm about 92 years old on detention. what else you got? And he says, well, do you want to go home and change your jeans? I said, yeah, I'll do that. So about 3 weeks later, the truant officer taps me on the shoulder and just about scares the life right out of me. I turned around and I don't think she liked me very well. She used to drive this old 61 Plymouth car that rattled and smoked. She tapped me on the shoulder and she says, Mr. Hooper, where have you been? And I said, I don't know what you mean. I've been looking for you for 3 weeks. And I says, I've been right here. The yellow perch, this is up on the St. Lawrence River. The yellow perch have been biting like crazy, and I've been fishing. And you want some fish? And she said, no. Why haven't you been to school? And I said, well, Bill sent me home. He did what? I said, yeah, I had these pair of bell-bottom jeans on. He sent me home to change them. So I went home and changed them. Well, why didn't you come back? And I said, well, Bill didn't tell me to come back. I thought I was expelled, so I've been fishing. I don't think she liked me too well. So the thing is that I've gone from cheating and stealing all the information I can all the time. That's the only way I could get any information. But even not being able to read anything, which I realize is a downfall and is something I should have attended to, but I didn't. I have gone away from the reservation, and I'm pushing 70 years old now. And in that time, I've written 4 books, 2 comedy books, and for stand-up comedy, and 2 children's books from when I did the storytelling, native storytelling, so they're of a 1,000-year-old period. I have written commercials for sketch comedy shows. I have had a TV show of my own for 2 seasons in Richmond, Virginia. It was called Hoop It Up, which I didn't realize till after I named it. Hoop It Up means screw it up. So I guess that helped sell the show because people thought we were really going to screw it up. But I thought that having your own TV show was going to be an impossible feat. It was not. They're very easy to set up. The only problem is it was $600 a week, and at the time I was making that kind of money. So I funded it for 2 seasons, and it's a lot of work. A lot of work. But in that time of even not being able to read, you can pretty much steal any information just by listening. And now this is my 4th documentary, and I still can't read to this day. So you can call me dumb or ignorant or whatever. I've been called a little bit of everything, and a cheater, that they're thinking I'm writing this information on my wrist or my hand or a cheat sheet or something. No, it's just making a picture in your mind. And in that time I've traveled coast to coast, and I can do it still. I can go from one shore to the other, north, south, east, or west, without a map, because I put the maps in my head and taken a picture of them. And I do use GPS in the city, but out in the open road, for somebody who can't read, I think I've done all right for myself. So don't get discouraged, whether you can read or not. I would still love to read and be taken by somebody else's writing. I just never developed the skill. So there you go. You asked for it. That's a little bit more piece of me. Thank you.